Hi, everyone. Welcome to Late Night in Harlem. I'm your host, Laurence Anthony. Let's get right into things. From here in New York to New Zealand to Geneva, protests for Black Lives Matter and equal rights have covered the entire globe. A recent survey showed that more than 50% of Americans actually support the protests. 50%. Do you know how difficult it is to get 50% of Americans to agree on anything? If you were putting together a list of things and have 50% of the population to agree on it, it would be a pretty short list. It probably looks somewhere like the last season of Game of Thrones was trash, Ricky definitely should have run in a zigzag, and Scar would have probably been a lot nicer to everyone if they had just called him by his real name and not referenced his hideous scar that he was clearly insecure about. Sorry, Alan.
Alan.
Millions around the world are fighting for rights that are self-evident. They risk being brutalized while protesting police brutality and fighting for equal rights for Black people around the globe. Doing all of this while, let's not forget, we're in a global pandemic. Do we realize how insane this is? How protesters believe so much in creating change that they're risking exposure to a virus to which there is no cure and no foreseeable vaccine. That's like watching Fox News for an entire straight week to learn an opposing argument. Sure, you're probably going to be a little bit more prepared, but you're also probably going to start thinking that there's a deep state run by left-leaning liberals who are trying to take your guns, turn your son gay, and cancel Christmas.
Christmas is canceled.
You can't cancel a holiday.
Give it up, Stanley, and you will lose New Year's.
While all these protests are happening, some are taking the opportunity to exercise their God-given rights for brunch. This is right here in the city. St. Mark Street was already a breeding ground for infectious diseases. As I was out in the city this past weekend, masked up, but still chic, I witnessed something I couldn't believe. The parks were packed. And I don't mean regular packed. I mean packed as if everyone who lived below 14th Street decided that they needed to have a picnic. Everyone. COVID has not disappeared just because we wanted to. You can't treat it like that guy you met on Hinge during week 1 of the quarantine because you were bored, and now you hope he stops sending you his bread recipes. You know he's not going to stop until you block him. Look, I don't want to be the old man on the porch, but it's like we self-isolated for a few months, and then someone woke up and was like, nah, I'm over it. This is not an over it moment. We can't treat COVID the way we millennials treat a lot of problems that we're tired of dealing with, by just ghosting it. Dr. Fauci warns,
there is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically will set you back, not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery.
This goes with spikes that we're starting to see in Arizona, Texas, and Florida. Always Florida. But it's not just young people debating between their need for safety and health and their need for DIY all-you-can-drink mimosas.
Totally.
Remember back in May when middle-aged protesters were losing their minds, screaming at healthcare workers and storming state capitals? But this is where we are. So many Americans can't see past their own privilege, which sounds like, yeah, I'm sorry your father's at risk and I could possibly spread this infectious disease even more, killing more humans. But I know my rights. I need my happy hour at Outback. Maybe you're right. How else are you going to have subpar steak and sexually harass a server at the same time? Unless you become president. Look, I get it. We're all itching to enjoy the summer. Even in my hometown, Toronto, Canadians are getting fed up. Do you know how hard it is to get Canadians fed up? Do you really know what you have to do? You'd have to insult Terry Fox, Drake, and strip the Raptors of the NBA championship in the same week. And we'd probably still say, I'm sorry. I'm fed up too. But a little resolve, people. Do you know how hard it would be to quarantine in 1918? You were pretty much limited to isolated drinking, shaming strangers for not wearing masks, and dealing with a president who was not entirely opposed to racial segregation. Sounds eerily familiar. I feel like we lost our grit. Your barbecues in the park, picnics without masks can wait. When our parents show pictures of their parents, it usually involves some hard work, discipline, and maybe fighting a world war. Some of us are going to show our grandkids pictures of us from 2020, and it's going to be nothing more than a Snapchat filter with freckles and kitten ears. We can push through this. We have Netflix, the internet, PlayStation, Uber Eats. How are you bored? I get it. I know we're social creatures and we fundamentally need to connect with others in the most serious ways.
Carol Baskin killed her husband, whacked him.
But let's just do our part and save it for the things that actually matter. I do not want to be back here. None of us do. And if you need to ask yourself if it's actually worth it, keep in mind that there are people of every race reluctantly risking their health in order for equal rights. While some people are risking their health and safety for a crappy homemade charcuterie board. Some things are worth it, some things can wait. At least 50% of us can agree on that. I'm Laurence Anthony, and these are all my feels.